All right, well, good morning. Thank you for being here today. My name is Toby Bremling. I'm the Executive Director here at the West Plains Chamber of Commerce. And you're joining us for our State of Economic Development here in the West Plains, sponsored by BECU. Thank you so much to Steve Hochschild and his crew for sponsoring our meeting today. It's good to be back. I've been off for about the last 3 weeks. I mentioned in a newsletter yesterday that I have a 5th grade son that asked me to help me with his homework. And yeah, it's true. I am not smarter than a 5th grader. But I came back learning a lot more, so that's good. I know many of you are kind of in that same boat. We always want to start these meetings to just kind of say, hey, we've got a lot of members that are still kind of in those future phases where they haven't been on. Work as abnormal is hurting and it's hard. And so just know that in our board meeting yesterday, a lot of our focus is on how do we come alongside our members and our businesses, specifically in the West Plains, to kind of help get open safely and responsibly, but just kind of acknowledge that reality that it's still difficult for many of us in this room. So again, thank you for joining us today. I do want to say thank you to our volunteers and board of directors, and especially Deanna Williams, our office admin, on reduced hours for continuing to serve our membership just so greatly over the last few weeks. So we're excited for our call today. So I'm going to just prep our call with this. Look back to about July 2019, the Journal of Business posted an article that said $500 million in private investment is coming to the West Plains, and 5,000 new jobs was on the way. And so a lot of that was the result of the hard work of our speakers that you're going to hear today. And so even in the midst of that excitement, we just thought it was more than appropriate to hear from some of those stakeholders as to how has COVID changed that? What are some of those businesses that are relocating here, expanding? What are they thinking? Now, I do want to say that there's a lot of uncertainty in this season. So we're not asking our speakers to predict the future, see through their crystal ball, but at least kind of hear what is the state of where we're at right now, give us some hope, and I think there are some wins that we get to celebrate at the same time. So before we start, I do want to just kind of go through the courtesy of Zoom etiquette. I know many of us are going through Zoom fatigue, so I really appreciate you taking the time to be with us today. So if you are if you are randomly the one person that has not been on a Zoom call yet in the last like 12 plus weeks, I'm going to go ahead and keep you muted throughout the meeting. Periodically, just kind of check if you didn't accidentally unmute yourself. Go ahead and make sure that you do that. Also, if you do have a question, what we'll do is in the chat function, go ahead and just list your question in there. We will make sure that you can ask your question to some of our speakers when that time comes. So what we'll do is have each one of our speakers in about the middle part of our presentation just present for a little bit, and then we'll hold all the questions until the very end. And so right now, this call couldn't be possible without our sponsor. And so I just want to give Steve Hochschild, he sits on our board from BECU, for sponsoring this meeting. So one, Steve, thank you for what you do for our board of directors and what you give. And we thank you for BECU for sponsoring this meeting. So at this time, we just want to give you the floor.
All right. Well, thank you, Toby. Can you hear me?
Yep, we can see you and hear you.
Oh, wait. Hey, great. Thanks. Well, we're excited to sponsor today's event, but first, let me just say congratulations to the West Plains Chamber and all of the extraordinary efforts that have taken place with Toby and Deanna taking a little bit of time off here. This is really made possible through a collaborative effort by the board, by all the volunteers, and all of the members of the West Plains Chamber. And Toby, thank you for your leadership during this time. And we're just very excited to see the opportunities that are before us. And we know that this is just a bit of a bump in the road for us with COVID-19, but we're very happy to be able to partner not only with the West Plains Chamber, but all across the Spokane region and beyond to help people get through this time of change and to come out stronger for it. So we look forward to today's comments from our 5 panelists. And thank you again, Toby.
Yeah, this is, the 3 weeks off, it's getting to me a little bit. So Eric, we want to hand it over to you. So I didn't get a chance to say thank you, Steve. I appreciate it. And thank you again to BEC for sponsoring us. I do want to transition to our 2020 board chair, Eric Putoff from SDCU, to say a few words.
Excellent. Hey, thanks, Toby. Thanks, Steve, too. I appreciate BECU sponsoring today, and I really appreciate all of your help and leadership on the board. You guys are a pleasure to work with, and I know that we got some great people, so we're in good hands. So that kind of just brings me to a quick update on where we're at as a chamber. And so the one thing that I'm really looking forward to come June 1, we are going to be back running full speed. So we will be, you will see a little bit more of us come June 1. The board has decided to make sure that we have our staffing in place and do what we can to make sure that that all works out. So that's great news. The other part I'd like to just comment on is we've been talking a lot between staff and board about positioning the chamber to really come alongside of our regional partners and finding ways that we can support our membership the best way possible. There's a lot of resources out there. There's a lot of people providing resources out there, and we're going to be doing our best to make sure that we are coming across as one large voice and collaborating, being a good collaborator rather than doing just bits and pieces where we can. So just it's been really a pleasure getting to know a little bit more of the other chambers and the other regional partners out there a little bit better as we go through this process. And I really applaud everybody in coming alongside us during that little bit of downtime, but also allowing us to make sure that we can come alongside them and provide as much as the best that we can. So that's where we're at. We're really excited of the opportunities that are coming ahead. I know that a lot of people might not be looking at it in that way, but we see opportunity and we see ways that we can start to really kind of change how chambers respond to these type of things. So we're being proactive, and that's the position that we're really trying to take. So with that, I'm going to turn it back over to Toby. And then again, just thanks to all our sponsors for being here and sponsoring the event today. I'm really looking forward to our speakers and hearing what they have to say. Thanks.
Thank you, Eric. I appreciate your leadership during this time too. Yeah, these are tough times. Well, right now, without further ado, we definitely want to hear from our speakers. I do see Brandon Haugen over there dressed up. I love it. Thank you, sir. But here, let me go ahead and introduce who we have, and then I'll kind of cue them up one by one as we're going to hear from them for about 4 to 6 minutes, and then just know at the very end we'll have a question and answer. So again, if you have a question, go ahead and use it in that chat function, and then we'll take all the questions at the end. And so, as I mentioned, West Plains expansion has been our narrative for about the last, I don't want to say just the last 2.5 years that I've been with the chamber. It's been our narrative for a while, but it's really started to come to fruition here in the last few years. So we're excited about that. And we do want to kind of hear from our stakeholders to give us a good update of what we can expect. And so we're excited to have Commissioner Al French, the board chair from S3R3 Solutions. That's formerly the West Plains Airport Area Public Development Authority. Mike Tedesco, Executive Director of the Spokane Tribe of Indians, Brandon Haugen, General Manager of the Kalispell Development, Mark Schuler, City Manager of the City of Cheney, and then Albert Tripp, City Administrator of the City of Airway Heights. And so right now we do want to hand the floor over to our first speaker, Commissioner Al French. Thank you so much for being with us today. And we're anxious to kind of hear what's going on with the PDA.
Yes, thank you, Toby, and thanks to everybody, especially the sponsors, for making this possible. I'm just going to be very brief and let you know that we're continuing to do business. We're continuing to negotiate on deals for the West Plains. Obviously, the COVID virus has slowed us down a little bit, but has not stopped us. We continue to have folks express interest in the West Plains. There are a number of, a couple developers that are in the permitting process now for new construction, new capacity out in the West Plains. So we know that this COVID incident is temporary. It's not permanent. We are going to work our way out of it. For those that don't know, we did apply yesterday to the governor for going into phase 2. The application will actually be completed and submitted by the health district today. And then hopefully we will be open for phase 2 before the Memorial Day weekend. So we continue to push. We're leading the other large counties in the state with metrics, and so we're excited about our future. So with that, I'm also on the airport finance committee meeting Zoom call now too. So I'm going to jump back on that and let Todd Coleman continue representing S3R3. Todd?
Thank you, Commissioner French. I'll just follow on from where Commissioner French left off. He's been a great board chair. I appreciate his leadership during all this time and leadership at the county. So as was mentioned, S3R3 Solutions is the public development authority that's managing the West Plains Airport area development. And as most of you probably know, the PDA was created by Spokane County and the city of Spokane in order to target, as a target investment area, to grow economic prosperity in our region, and particularly in the West Plains. And as such, we've been really focused in on our recruitment of new businesses, assisting businesses navigate the entitlement processes, and to coordinate smart infrastructure for the West Plains. We want to make sure that as we grow, we don't outgrow and make this a place where congestion and some of those other problems that we've seen in other communities becomes a negative. So on the recruitment side of it, just briefly, I would say that it was interesting the first 30 days, beginning around the end of March. Things were pretty slow on the recruitment side because of the COVID stay-home restrictions. We saw a lot of companies put travel restrictions in place. But fortunately, in the last 30 days, that has really reversed and things have really picked up. We've had an influx of interest from the Washington State Department of Commerce leads. We don't put a lot of onus on those because we see a lot of them. They're looking at a plethora of different communities in order to locate. But nonetheless, I think what does show is that the economy has not stopped, and that we are seeing the companies are looking at how do they continue to go forward, how do they continue to grow and improve their logistics. And I think in some cases, maybe even some of the reaction to recent events is making them look at how do they better plan for these types of situations. Beyond that, we've also been working with a number, as Commissioner French mentioned, of companies directly that have interest, whether it's we've got several that are looking at manufacturing sites in the West Plains, and we've got at least 2 that are looking at logistics and distribution centers that are all sizable. So it's good that we're still seeing that. Unfortunately, I can't talk about the specific companies, although I think a couple of them you may have heard about recently. Hopefully those will start to be more known here in the near future. Our other focus, as I mentioned, has been on infrastructure. We had several projects going on, but as in that first 30 days where things slowed down on the recruitment side, we really started to focus in on our infrastructure and to really hone in there, figuring that at some point we're going to need to, as a country, have some stimulus funds or some things to get people back to work and help bring the economy back. And so we want to make sure that we are well positioned for that. And amazingly, with our partnership with the City of Spokane and City of Airway Heights, we were actually able to sign interlocal agreements and negotiate a contract with TO Engineers for the development of the 6th, 10th, and 12th Avenue corridor from Craig Road to Flint Road. And we are pushing full steam ahead with that project. We've got great support from our board and from the key stakeholders along that corridor. And our goal is by mid-August is to have a package that's available to submit for grants. And hopefully we can get either some state funding, if there's any funding left there. I know that we're having some significant impacts on the state budget, but also be prepared for stimulus packages in order to get those projects moving forward. So I really appreciate the partnerships we've got there. This project, just to give you an idea of why we think it has so much possibility, is we've got key stakeholders, which include the Spokane Tribe, Kalispell Tribe, Fairchild Air Force Base, Spokane Transit Authority, WashDOT, SRTC, and the county, in addition to the 2 cities. And I'll let Albert talk about that a little bit more. We're also pushing forward on our stormwater regional facilities. We are finishing phase 2. We're just doing a feasibility analysis on how we can pay for the improvements. I think what most likely you're going to see is we're going to enter into our phase 3 project this fall, which is going to focus on developing a regional stormwater facility up around the Highway 2 corridor area. This is really critical because it allows us to make sure that we're managing stormwater. And what we've seen in some of the preliminary analysis is that if you continue to do stormwater on a site-by-site basis, you're taking up about 20% of the land and likely costing those local developers somewhere between $350 and $450 million on stormwater facilities. We can get about a 4-to-1 ratio, benefit cost ratio on that, and reduce the cost of those developers significantly. So we're continuing to push forward there. We also have been working on a wetland mitigation bank. Unfortunately, we had the Corps of Engineers and Department of Ecology ready to come out and tour the site on April 7th. And then they were restricted for travel, so we are postponing that, and hopefully we'll be able to get them back out there in October to look at this site. The idea behind the mitigation bank is to pre-mitigate for unavoidable impacts for wetlands. We have over 300 acres of wetlands just in the West Plains airport area. And this would create shorter, more certainty for the developers as they go in and come across these unavoidable impacts, and would also provide an opportunity to remove standing water and wildlife habitat, which can be a negative for air traffic. So really excited about that project. You know, in summary, the COVID pandemic has definitely had negative effects on our economy. I don't think we've seen the full extent of that yet. We feel for those of you that are on the call, particularly those that are in small business that have been impacted the most. But we do see a path forward, and we continue to see growth. We've seen a couple projects shift out, but we've seen more new projects come in this year. And we think that we just need to continue to grow those plains in a sustainable manner and create economic prosperity for our citizens. I'll hang around for questions later on. Toby, back to you.
Todd, thank you so much for, Todd also sits on our board, and I think there are some great wins that even in the midst of all this, that there's still activity and people are still reaching out. It's definitely comforting to us. And so right now, and also we want to say thank you to Commissioner French too, for just your, what you do on their board as well. So right now I want to hand it over to Mike Tedesco, Executive Director of the Spokane Tribe of Indians.
Hey, good morning, everybody. Toby, can I do a sound check? Am I coming in okay?
You sound great.
Thumbs up. We've been really busy at the tribe doing various things on a level of funding and coordinating with the federal government. A lot of formula funding has come in from the feds, which we're very grateful for. It's allowing us to avoid layoffs and maintain operations at traditional levels. One of the interesting challenges that we're bumping into regarding funding is it's easy enough to tie the funding to COVID-related activities, and we can build a lot of infrastructure toward that end. But the time limits to get the money out the door are very challenging to meet. So for instance, a big chunk of funding just got released from Treasury to all the tribes in the country. And it's a significant amount of money, but we have till December to spend it and get it out the door. And as you know, bureaucracy tends to move a little slower than that, particularly monies tied to federal regulations. And I would suspect that we're not the only governmental entity, as well as private entities, that are struggling with these time restrictions on the money. So one of the asks that I have for all of the partners on this call this morning is, to the extent that you engage with the federal government on an advocacy level, advocate that funding timelines are extended so we have enough time to utilize the money for what it's intended to do and not leave anything on the table within the region. So that's item one. It's a good problem to have, and we're working through it. We were able to, as you know, open the casino, moving on to item two, in Airway Heights on May 14th. We are very appreciative of the coordination and collaboration that the Regional Health District extended our way. They toured the facility before we opened, provided great suggestions. They reviewed our reopening plan for health and safety and provided great suggestions. So that relationship with the Regional Health District has definitely bared fruit for the Spokane tribe. As you know, we were planning in April to start construction of an expanded casino. That's been put on hold. We actively are releasing the pause button on that conversation, and we intend to move forward with that as soon as possible. And once we know dates that are in concrete when we intend to put shovels in the ground, West Plains Chamber will definitely be the first to know. Interestingly, the Economic Development Administration, through all the stimulus money, they received a big tranche, and they're releasing funds, formula funds, to entities that have a comprehensive economic development strategy adopted. And those are regional economic development strategies. And when one is in place, then you're eligible for EDA funding, among other things. So I'm bringing that up because it's another request for advocacy and movement that I would ask everybody on this call to start prioritizing with a sense of urgency. Spokane County does not have one of these in place, a SETS, and therefore the county did not receive the formula funding from EDA. Now, this isn't the county's fault. I'm not throwing anybody under the bus. It's a collaborative effort. It's all of our faults for not having one in place. And these plans open the door to money specifically from EDA, but also other agencies for things like infrastructure on the West Plains and whatever else the region wants as a whole. GSI is leading the effort to establish one of these plans, and this pandemic is another reason why we should all participate in that planning effort to ensure that in the future, when EDA releases money, the region is on the list to receive some of those funds. So I'll ask you to consider that. And then finally, I really want to thank Todd and the PDA for leading the efforts toward transportation improvements, specifically in and around Airway Heights. Spokane Tribe very much appreciates that effort. We're actively participating in it. It definitely impacts the development environment in a positive way within the Airway Heights area and within the West Plains as a whole. So Todd, I want to thank you for that. And I think I will pause there and allow the other speakers to have the floor, but certainly open for questions at the end of this call. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike. We appreciate it. And again, the Spokane Tribe of Indians is such a great partner of ours. And Mike, you are too. Mike also sits on our board as well. I think a lot of the transportation stuff, just so it's not missed within our group, I think there is an interest. I mean, it's just a great celebration between the city of Spokane, and I know Albert will kind of mention this too, the city of Airway Heights, and the PDA kind of leading the charge on that of alternative routes for Highway 2 is really, it's really significant, and it's kind of amazing that it's happening right in the midst of this crisis, that we can still kind of get that critical infrastructure right in the heart of our area. And so right now, I want to hand it over to the handsome man up there at the top of my screen, Brandon Haugen, wearing the tuxedo t-shirt. He's a general manager at Kalispell Development. He handles a lot of the real estate and just the development of the Kalispell Tribe Trust lands right here in Airway Heights. So Brandon, I'll hand it off to you.
Well, thank you so much, Toby. Couldn't be more excited to be here. As you can tell, Toby had asked me originally to dress for the occasion. And when he said the goal was to celebrate the wins and give members hope, That's why I chose my favorite tuxedo t-shirt. So thank you so much for giving us the opportunity to be here. So for those of you who don't know me, Brandon Haugen, I am the general manager of the Kalispell Development Company for the tribe. Most of my focus is around real estate stuff, especially south of Northern Quest. When asked, how are we seeing things within the West Plains? It's interesting, to echo what Todd was saying, for the first 30 days, a lot of folks were pretty hesitant, just naturally trying to figure out what's going on, how do we react to this? It happens so quick. But then recently, we've started to see things normalize, and it's very encouraging, especially to get the phone calls, to have the conversations flowing. People are ready to get back out, get to work, and start planning for the future to get their mind prepped for the future. So, I think there's a couple of things, there's a couple of anomalies that are really, kind of helping us kind of continue to move forward. One of them obviously is the Amazon growth. It's continuing to provide jobs out here. We're in the process of opening up Salish Flats, which is our roughly 220 unit multifamily apartment community out here that is seeing a lot of demand for additional housing, which is a good sign. Things haven't really slowed down much, which is encouraging for us. Fairchild, the tribes, the cities, there's a lot of growth that's happening naturally as airmen and women are getting restationed here and things are starting to kind of amp up. And so I think one of the things that's really encouraging, from my perspective and seeing the growth that's going on, even at the PDA, is there's just a lot of naturally harbored growth that once we get through the next hopefully 12 months and more certainty comes along, that we'll be able to ride off of it and be in a better position. So the tribe, the Kalispell tribe, shut down Northern Quest for almost 50 days, and similar to the Spokane tribe and other tribes, gaming is a primary source of revenue to support its governments. And so we opened back up recently, with the idea that we gotta promote safety and we gotta make sure we do it the right way. But we have to continue to fund and provide for our essential governmental services. And so we're happy that it's open. We're constantly monitoring the situation, seeing what's going on with the regional case count. The encouraging thing is, and I haven't seen the data for today, but everything is still relatively low within the marketplace. And so we're excited to see that, and hopefully there's energy behind some of these activities getting closer to phase 2, getting back to reopening. Safety, health, and wellness are obviously at the front of the tribe's vision and mission. So as we go through this, it was a very tough decision, very challenging, but something that the tribal council felt was necessary to move forward and continue to provide those services. So we'll keep monitoring and managing, kind of our response on that end, but it's reassuring. So, from our standpoint, it looks like tough decisions will continue to have to be made for everybody, at least in the short term, but probably for a while. And a lot of it is, how do you continue to operate and grow while also promoting safety and wellness for your employees and your customers and folks that walk through your doors? So, just as a message of hope, in addition to the tuxedo t-shirt, you look back at past recessions, we're resilient. That's one thing that's kind of behind this American DNA, this spirit of optimism that we're getting behind. And we're excited to continue to watch things kind of evolve. And, it does impact everybody. The last recession, there were certain industries that were really impacted and everybody felt it. But these are the people that we live next door to that are getting laid off, or folks we personally experience within our own families that have lost jobs or just a lack of certainty. So now is the time more than ever to continue to support local business. And if you're a local business, continuing to innovate to find ways to make your product available for folks in and around this market to continue to buy and keep the cash flow streaming, I think is really important. So, unemployment benefits only last so long. It's important that we safely get people back to work. And, I think the last thing from our perspective is continuing to rally around and advocate for what's necessary within our region. And I think we're seeing a lot of voiceful, acts and things that are happening kind of one-off. but this is an opportunity to rally around the chamber, the West Plains Chamber specifically, for needs that are kind of impacting us in our backyard, to continue to advocate with one voice, continue to identify ways that we can rally and promote the next kind of series of directions for where this region wants to go. So, and also, couldn't be more happy to have another Zoom meeting. But this is how we do it. This is how we come back together. So go get back to the chamber, share your thoughts, feelings. Let's create a kind of a cohesive one voice approach. And that's all I got for now. I'll be happy to come back around for questions later.
Brandon, thank you so much. We appreciate it. It is interesting that, I mean, we've just heard from our two tribes and the PDA. And so the West Plains is an area that includes 3 dynamic cities at the same time. And so not only is a lot of our growth happening kind of in the north end, but we also want to include, there's a lot of opportunity and potential that's happening down in Cheney as well. And so we're excited to have Mark Schuler from the city of Cheney to share as well. So Mark, yeah, we'd love to hear from you.
Thank you, Toby. Thanks for inviting us to share sort of Cheney's situation, Cheney's story. I want to talk about a couple opportunities and a couple challenges for Cheney, just from an economic development perspective. We'll start with the Cheney Industrial Park as a real opportunity. Pre-COVID, we had some momentum going in the park. Targets, which is a Cheney homegrown business, had started construction on a new manufacturing facility in the park. That was put on hold due to the shutdown of construction activities that were non-essential. Happy to say they're back up and in construction mode right now. We're really happy to hear that. We have another group that we're working with, another LLC that's got an agreement to lease to own several of the properties in the industrial park for a variety of business interests. One that we're most excited about, at least from a city's perspective, is a sort of a combination business incubator office space, to start companies potentially that could grow into, larger operations that could then take up other spaces in the industrial park. So we're excited to see that come to fruition and get to work on in laying the infrastructure and getting the buildings in place. We've got another potential existing building out there. The light manufacturer is looking to relocate part of his business into Cheney, and we're working with that particular individual on getting them some additional electric power capacity to support their operation. So we're hoping to respur some of the energy that we had pre-COVID. A couple other opportunities in Cheney. We don't have a ton of manufacturing space that's vacant in Cheney, but we do have the Hale property, which is formerly AMX or Harmon, and in a couple of different. It was at the time it was an electronic manufacturing facility that's made up of 2 buildings ranging from 26,000 to a little over 33,000 square feet. Great opportunity for a manufacturer or somebody looking for some office space. So that's a potential that we think is a great opportunity for a business that wants to get up and run right away. It's a fantastic facility. We've got a couple of former bank buildings in town that are in need of a new tenant, whether it's a bank or a credit union that doesn't have a presence in Cheney. Hint, hint to anybody on the call. It also could be used for, an office space. So please take a look at those if there's any interest there. We additionally, from an economic development perspective and sort of taking barriers away, we're working to bring better broadband internet into Cheney. We've got a couple of projects in the works right now. Some testing's being done and some surveying and things on bringing higher speeds to Cheney, which I know is one of the critical things that we hear in the community as being sort of a drawback. So we're working to deal with that and provide better service. Now, one of the big challenges that we face is the Growth Management Act. As you've probably heard me talk before, it sort of limits our ability to grow as a city. We have a specific need to gain some ground for single-family residences and adding roof our community, not just to support economic development in Cheney, but also to the tremendous growth in the West Plains in general. We feel we have a great community here in Cheney, a great place to raise a family with great schools, and we need to be able to add single-family homes that are reasonably priced to grow our economic base and our tax base here in Cheney. So we will be concentrating a lot of our efforts on trying to, work with the powers that be to expand the boundaries of the city of Cheney. It's important to us from a city financial perspective because growth is the one thing that will help us sustain, provide to the community, especially of our general fund operations like police and fire. So it's critical to us to grow, but to grow in a measurable fashion. We certainly don't want to get ahead of ourselves. Next thing to talk about, and I'm hoping this is more of a short-term challenge than a long-term challenge, is EWU's status for the fall. Eastern is a huge part of the city of Cheney. It's part of our identity as a community. And the focus, at least the announced focus on sort of online classes for the fall, definitely will have an impact on the local community. I've already heard it out of the business community. They're very concerned about the lack of students and staff and faculty that could be in town for the fall. They already deal with those low numbers during the summer months, but to add that into the fall is asking a lot out of these businesses. And I very much worry about our current businesses, as well as our ability to attract new business, especially retail, to Cheney, if they know that the population isn't going to be here to support their business. So that's a concern of ours that we will continue to monitor. And, hopefully we can all manage through this virus and kind of get back to whatever a new normal is and get students back on campus, because they certainly bring an energy to the community, the staff and faculty as well. We would welcome people back with open arms. We want to do it safely. Ultimately, the safety and security of our community is critical to us. That's how this entire process is keeping the health of our community as being the top priority. And I understand Eastern's perspective to try to keep their students safe as well. But at some point, we're ready to move on and do so safely. Listening to Dr. Lutz, 3 times a week as we meet as a policy group, he's very confident in the data that supports us moving to phase 2. And, I think we have a lot of commitment in this region to opening safely. And I really do think it's time for us to reopen our economy and do it the right way. And hopefully we'll get a lot of compliance citizens in terms of honoring the social distancing and wearing masks when it's appropriate. Being aware of just your impact on your fellow citizen, your fellow man or woman, and just keeping everybody's health and safety in mind. So those are just some of the things that we're focusing on here in Cheney. We're excited about the potential for the future, and we're excited to get back to sort of normal society. I can tell people are starting to get the Zoom fatigue, and I'll be honest, I'm tired of looking at the shine come off of my head on these virtual meetings. So I'm ready for some person-to-person contact, and I'll be happy to answer any questions later on as time permits.
Mark, thank you so much. We appreciate it. And we as a chamber, City of Cheney, you guys have been such a great partner of ours. EWU, I see Ms. Ritchie down on my screen too, and Lisa as well, quite a bit of, it's a balance between safety. I'm sure you're in the same conversation I am, that there are people on both sides of safety versus commerce, and we're kind of right there in the midst of it. And I think you said it well. It's like we want to open safely. And I know Provost May made a comment the other day that it's like you have 11,000 kids that are about to enter into a space. Just kind of it's not a slam dunk. None of these are slam dunk questions. And so thank you for bringing that up.
Oh,
so lastly,
Toby, one more thing real quick. I'm going to speak for all Eagle fans here, I hope, in that let's all keep our fingers crossed for a football season this year. That also has an economic impact in Cheney, but we need to see some people on the red turf. That's what I have to say about that.
Go Eags. Well, right now we are going to hear from our last speaker, Mr. Albert Tripp, City Administrator from the City of Airway Heights. I know he's got a couple celebrations too. So Albert, thanks for being on the call, and we wanted to give you the floor.
Thanks very much, Toby. Real quick, just wanted to do a mic check, and is my audio coming through okay?
Yep, you're coming across great.
Okay, perfect. Well, thanks everyone. Good afternoon. It's a pleasure to be with you. Thanks for taking the time out of your day to join us. Thanks to the sponsors for putting on this event, and to our other speakers as well for the thoughts and encouragement that they shared. I would say with regards to Airway Heights, similar to the other speakers, at the beginning of this particular pandemic, we too saw some contraction in terms of recruitments that were underway, but we're excited to turn that curve and begin activating those conversations and pursuing those opportunities. Some of the projects that we had in the process, we've reached out and connected with those particular applicants, and the vast majority of those, they're moving forward. People are ready to get back to work, and so some of those opportunities, the lion's share of them, 90% of those are moving forward. There's only a couple that are making the decision to pause just for a little bit longer. A quick thank you. I want to thank all of the businesses that had an opportunity to participate in the recovery planning process that we had underway. We were out in the community talking to different business owners about their experiences during this pandemic and how the city might be able to come alongside and assist and be a source of mitigation to care for some of those needs. We anticipate being able to finalize those findings this week and then share those thought processes with the council so that we can move forward with an action plan and help in that regard. Todd had a chance to share earlier, there's an exciting project on the infrastructure side, transportation-wise. That was a challenge. We saw that as a challenge prior to COVID. It was a potential barrier that stood in the way of a lot of the great economic development we've been seeing on the West Plains. That being just having enough capacity in the roadways and the arterials that lead in and out of the community. And so we're very excited to be partnering with PDA, City of Spokane, both tribes and other partners to move forward with a new east-west arterial that will add more capacity and reduce congestion on US 2, while also permitting additional economic development to take place. We have a variety of planning activities that are underway pre-COVID and that will continue to move forward. One of the major ones I'm excited about that's occurring here over the next 30, 60, and 90 days is a review of our building and planning services, just in terms of doing a 360. We're really interested in hearing feedback from both the business and the construction community about the process associated with both the services that we're providing in that area and then opportunities on how we can improve those services and become more efficient. We are moving forward with our next step of planning for our downtown. And so we have a variety of workshops to provide input into those processes, which are getting underway in June, July, and August. And we welcome your input and involvement in that process. We're also updating our development standards and looking to offer incentives to perform fill-in and to remodel the downtown area. And we're wanting to do so, of course, in a manner that's consistent with the community vision. Similar to the city of Cheney, Airway Heights also has a need for expansion. So we're focusing on an urban growth expansion. We're working in partnership with the county and other municipalities to look at an urban growth expansion to the east of the city, so east of Hafer Road and north of US 2, to bring in about 300 acres, principally that we are seeing a need for to provide more opportunities for housing, workforce housing on the West Plains. As most of you know, there's a great majority of the people who work on the West Plains that are commuting from other locations. And so this represents a great opportunity for the West Plains to be able to meet that workforce housing need. And we've also been planning with the Cheney School District in terms of school facilities, because we know that's a key asset that's necessary for the building of any community. And it's also a significant need within Airway Heights, just based upon the number of facilities that currently exist. And so we are really excited to be working with the district on a proposed school site for middle school and high school in these locations as well. We continue to pursue opportunities around the community's multimodal efforts. And so to that end, we're pursuing opportunities to provide more pedestrian pathways and sidewalks. And we also have a park master plan update out on the street, which we're looking to get feedback and input into about the distributions of parks and how they can be augmented for the future. I will pause at that particular point, but as the other speakers have noted earlier, while there are valid reasons to be concerned, we see a lot of opportunity for getting excited in terms of what's on this next page. This community had a lot of great things going for it. I think it still continues to do so, and I think you hear a resounding commitment from all the speakers today to continue to push that forward into the future. Back to you, Toby.
Mr. Tripp, thank you so much. I think one of the things that I've heard from at least Mr. Schuler and Albert up in Airway Heights, just that there is still a giant $2.6 million square foot facility right in the heart of the West Plains that isn't operational yet. And so our workforce is coming back, and a need for housing is definitely going to be important. I even heard Brandon talk about a Salish Flats apartments up there too. So it's just interesting when we still look at the demand for housing. It's encouraging to hear that growth of that residential side is going to be important. I guess right now we do want to open it up for a couple questions. I'm just going to bring up the one that I get hit with all the time, and I'm going to toss Todd under the bus, and he can come over and smack me if he wants. But I know that there's been a lot of questions regarding Mullen Technologies and Selkirk Pharma. I get to ask, is there any changes to those statuses of those projects that you could share with us?
Yeah, so it's good news on Selkirk Pharma. They reached an agreement with a developer, and they're anticipating breaking ground on their site. They're just off of Granite and Flint, starting in July. So we'll be excited to see them get up and operating. I think, this is from a business standpoint, I think this just helps to express the importance of having those kinds of services available. What was the other one you asked about, Toby?
I think it was that electric car thing.
Mullen Technologies. Yeah, I still get a lot of questions from those. So they are still in their equity raising program. They've got some work to do to get there. It's been slow. They have been working on their application for a loan guarantee with Department of Energy. Frankly, what we've been saying, and I want to make sure that the context of this is appropriate, is that when they're ready, we can put together some of the land that's necessary to support their project. We've got literally thousands of acres available for development, and many of those right next to the transload rail facility, the airport. So there's numerous ways for this community to meet those needs. So we're not concerned about that. So we did not extend the letter of intent, but we are ready to help them when they have their funding put together.
Thank you for that. I think the first one that I saw came from Harlan from the Journal of Business, and I don't know if this could be a Mark Schuler question, but it was just it was about Four Lakes. So for some of you that may not be really familiar with the West Plains, Four Lakes is kind of the right as you get off of I-90 to head into Cheney on 904. It's that little community right there. And so the question is there any thoughts in terms of updating Four Lakes in terms of traffic or water or sewer, or potential to expand up there? I know, Mark, you're talking about urban growth boundary stuff and you're Cheney, but I'm just curious if you've heard any rumors of Four Lakes or opportunity there.
I haven't, and that's a little bit outside of our service area, so that's probably more of a county issue than it is a city of Cheney one.
Got it.
Toby,
go ahead, Albert.
I can address a little bit of that if no one else is. So one of the things when we started working with the City of Airway Heights and City of Spokane and SRTC and STA and all the other players on the 6th and 12th Avenue was that we agreed that we also needed to deal with 21st Avenue, which is the parallel corridor to Highway 2 south of Highway 2. But we also wanted to start a conversation this summer co-led by SRTC and S3R3 Solutions to take a look at our entire network system and how do we get our north-south connections from Airway Heights, the tribes and other developments back to I-90. And I think that is going to involve the Four Lakes interchange and at least a discussion around, is that one of the potential connection points? So I bring that up because I think it's a great opportunity for everyone on this call to engage in that discussion. We will have a robust public outreach process. because we really want to hear what the needs are of all the key stakeholders in the area.
And Toby, I could speak to the water side on the Four Lakes component. So from the water perspective as it relates to Four Lakes, as Airway Heights moved through the process of identifying alternatives for replacing our water system, Four Lakes Medical Lake was part of our thought process. There've been challenges on the West Plains in general with water, and so we wanted to really think holistically in terms of how do we find a solution that not only benefit Airway Heights, but Four Lakes and Medical Lake. And from a proximity standpoint, each of those three different systems are within blocks of each other as far as their water sources. And so it makes it really easy just to interconnect the systems and share a single source. And so the replacement well sites that we're looking at, we're viewing those through the lens of providing opportunities and being alternatives for the city of Medical Lake, along with Four Lakes as well.
Yeah, Toby, this is Al French. I can also tell you that on behalf of the county, while they're not currently inside the UGA, for 2025 update, I think that will be part of the conversation. And, you know, the industries that we've located out there, Highline, Grain, and a couple others have really been more ag-related. And so if we're going to expand that to include light industrial or other uses, we really do need to bring them inside the UGA to be able to provide the land use designations to allow for that kind of development. So maybe not today, but I fully expect that that'll be part of the 2025 update.
That's great news. I don't know if I see another question on here directly, but I did have one for maybe Brandon or and Todd. Some of you that kind of mentioned that, hey, you know, there was a little bit of a stagnation right when COVID started, but calls are starting to come in. Just kind of curious, what kind of calls are you hearing? I mean, are they more like kicking tires, or I mean, is there any potential? I guess we're kind of just curious as to, are we starting the whole process over again, or are we continuing where we left off?
Brandon, do you want to go first?
Hold on, I'm gonna unmute. Brandon, go ahead.
I was going to say a lot of multi-billion-dollar tech companies are calling, and we're having to shoo them away because we're more focused on creating livable spaces and certain types of residential. But all jokes aside, from the tribe's perspective, the ball is being picked up kind of where it was left off with some of our previous discussions. There is strong demand around residential for a lot of obvious reasons. We're an entertainment company at Northern Quest, and so there's a lot of groups in the entertainment space that are trying to forecast 12, 24, 36 months out. Obviously, it's an industry that's been impacted harder in many ways than others, especially around hospitality. But, you know, I think what people see is they still see an opportunity in 12 to 24 months after things are reopened, and possibly, and we're trying to read what's going on with the construction industry. It's kind of six in one hand, half a dozen in the other, in the sense that it appears that, you know, with less projects and more labor pool, that you would be able to get in and possibly do construction projects at a lower price. However, you have less folks returning to work, especially until the unemployment benefits go away. So it's kind of a trade-off. We're not really seeing much of a difference yet in construction pricing as a result to the impacts of COVID. But I just think there's a lot of optimism still, and people are just resilient. They want to get back into the swing of things. And so we're seeing residential, we're seeing things all across the board: residential, commercial, a little bit of retail, and things kind of in around that entertainment hospitality space. So we are remaining pretty optimistic. The tribe has a kind of a master site, a vision for being an integrated mixed use 400-acre site that plugs into everything that's going on in the West Plains, and everything that we're seeing is there's still a lot of interest. So we're excited there.
Todd, did you want to add anything?
Looks like Commissioner French maybe was getting ready. I'll defer to him.
Well, we just got an update yesterday. You know, we go through an annual comp plan update, and for this next cycle, I think we've got 7 or 8 properties out in the West Plains that are looking for land use designation changes to be able to promote construction and development and stuff. So that's the most request that we've seen in several years, and I'm encouraged that a lot of that activity is really focused on the West Plains. So I think people are now starting to understand we're starting to stabilize here. What does the future look like, and how do they position themselves to get back to whatever normal is going to look like?
Yeah, and I'll just add from one project that I'm really excited about, because it adds a new tool to our portfolio, and that is Harlan Douglas purchased the property between Amazon and Thomas Malin Road and has planned about 4.2 million square feet, I believe, of spec warehouses in that area. That it'll take a number of years to develop, but they're in the permitting process for the first 2 of those warehouses. And I think each one's about 80,000 square feet. And we've been able to take some interest both in logistics, distribution, and manufacturing. And some of those are brand new leads, people trying to get out of high dense metropolitan areas where quality of life isn't that great. And some that have been around for the last 2 years that have been kicking the tires, that we're able to now say, hey, here's a product that's going to be available and it's going to be opening up in summer of 2021. And you don't have to do a lot of work, just have a conversation with these folks and we can get you plugged into that, and they can do some tweaks to make sure that this building works for you. So I'm excited about some of those opportunities. I think it's giving us something where we don't have to be looking at how are we going to react for something that's 2 years out, where we can just fit them right into immediate need.
Yeah, well, I appreciate that. And I'm just looking at the time, we're getting pretty close. I guess I do want to just close with, it is encouraging that even some of the conversations I've had with people along Highway 2, some of our smaller developers, that, hey, once we become essential, construction is going to kind of get back to normal, which is encouraging, that it's already in the books. They're committed, it's going to come through. So right now, I know I did see a question regarding just some sidewalks in Highway 2. I'll make sure that I connect you, Hope, with Albert Tripp to kind of get some of those questions answered. But I just want to say thank you on behalf of the Chamber and the West Plains. Thank you to BECU and Steve Hoschow for sponsoring our meeting today. Thank you to our speakers, Brandon Haugen, Mike Tedesco, Commissioner French, Todd Coleman, Mark Schuler, and also Albert Tripp. Thank you so much for your insight and just your leadership in our community. It's exciting that being in the West Plains area, we have some significant players in the economic development game for the whole region. And so it's nice that we get a chance to not only just have a seat at the table, but a pretty significant voice at that table. So again, thank you so much for being with us today. And again, together, we're going to push through this. I don't know if we're going to get back to normal, but when we get to that new normal, we'll be in it together. So thank you so much.
Thanks, Toby.